r/AskReddit. All you can eat buffet workers, what are your horror stories? Not an employee, but a customer. A long time ago, my mom and I picked up a friend of hers, and we went to a local Chinese food buffet. This place had a thing where you could get a pound of food for $5 in a tequila container instead of sitting and eating at the restaurant if you want. So that was our plan. The three of us were browsing around the buffet line with our tequila containers, adding what we wanted to them, and then I noticed my mom's friend doing something fucking disgusting. He was eating a chicken wing. Like, right in front of the buffet line, hiding his face behind his tequila container. And then he took the chicken bone and put it back in the buffet tray. I walked over to my mom and told her what he was doing, and at first she thought I was joking. So she walked over towards him, and now he was standing there eating a slice of watermelon right off the buffet and then putting the rind back in the tray. So my mom is like, what the fuck are you doing? And he's like, don't worry, I do this all the time. They never notice. So of course both me and mom are panicking, worried that they're gonna call the cops or something because of this disfit. We basically pretended to not know him and continued to fill up our containers the right way. After a couple minutes, one of the employees walks up to my mom and tells her that they noticed what the guy was doing, and they noticed that we were also uncomfortable about it and didn't intend to blame us. But they warned her that if she doesn't get him to pay for the food in his container and leave immediately, they'll be calling the police. So of course mom tells him that we need to go now, and he just brushes it off like I don't care. They're not gonna do anything. Well, me and mom walked up to the front, paid for our containers, apologized, and walked out and left him in there. A minute later, you can see and hear him shouting with the staff. He throws his container on the ground and food splatters everywhere. He storms out, shouting insults as he leaves, and of course gives them a "I'm never coming back," to which they reply, "You're not allowed in here no more. We'll call the cops." So we are standing out by the car, waiting for him. Of course, we yell at him for being a piece of shit. We get in the car and the next thing you know, this motherfucker starts pulling chicken wings and Chinese donuts out of his fucking pockets and eating them. We dropped him off at home and never spoke to him again. I managed a buffet in a casino in Reno for a few months. Had this family come in, mom, dad, 2 little kids. I get called over to the table because the mom had thrown up on her plate/table and wanted us to take it away and clean it up. I asked if she was okay, and she said she always throws up when she eats cheese. She had gotten herself an enchilada. It was Mexican theme night. WTF lady, enchiladas pretty much always had cheese. I told her I would have to call janitorial because none of my staff was trained to handle biohazards. She didn't understand why I couldn't just take it. Janitorial came in and couldn't clean up because she refused to move from the table. So janitorial left. She calls me back over and starts yelling at me. Dad starts yelling too. Apparently she wanted to keep eating after throwing up, which I thought was really gross. I had them sit at another table so they could all keep eating. Janitorial came back and cleaned the other table. Finally they go to leave and decide to make a huge scene in front of the whole restaurant and demand their money back. I refuse. Dad gets in my face and starts shouting that I'm just a racist white bitch and his wife makes loads more money than I do. I call security and they storm out, pulling pictures off the wall and shattering them on the floor, and dad also picked up a vase and broke it. The 2 kids are running around and banging on the walls. Security finally shows up after they ran off. I have to do a report and they were put on the 86 list. I fucking hate people. I used to work in an all-you-can-eat buffet. I would usually be the one who cleans up after people once closing hours pass. Essentially I was the de facto janitor of the place. This one time I had to clean the bathrooms after the place closed. No problems in the female bathroom, but when I went into the male restroom the image was burned into my retina instantly. An old man was lying on the floor, face down in a puddle of muck. Not just any sewage muck, but opaque, black muck. It had the color of motor oil. Smelled awful too, like a mix of fecal matter and rotting durian. Certainly didn't help that the liquid wasn't just smeared all over the floor, but spread across the walls too. There were fucking handprints across the wall, presumably when the geezer was trying to stand himself up. I peered into the toilet, more of that brown liquid, along with chunks of corny poop. There's also this fluid in your digestion called chyme. It's basically the thing right before food turns into poop, the pulpy acidic liquid with partially digested food in it. I could see scraps of chicken breast and sauce mixed in there with the pulpy chyme. As for the old guy, well, turns out, he didn't merely faint. He actually died. I was in a room with a fresh, decomposing corpse in the stages of alga mortis. He had his pants off. Presumably he shit himself to death, but I don't know. Fucker emptied himself like one of those cement mixers you'd see in a cartoon. Except you just replace the cement with a liquid that embodies death itself. Needless to say, I, like him, emptied my digestive contents, just from the opposite end that he did. After that I quit. Fuck that place, man. I worked at a pizza buffet for 2 years during college. I have a number of stories, but the one that I will always remember is the guy who got super upset that we wouldn't make more dessert pizza when we were half an hour past closing time. This guy comes in with his presumed wife and 2 children around 8:30. We close at 9. Nothing out of the ordinary happens until 9 rolls around, where it was still commonplace for people to be finishing up and eating what pizza was still left. I was doing the dishes and taking the empty dishes back from the buffet, and I see this guy, arms crossed and staring at me as I take the empty dessert pizza dish. He says something to the effect of, "When's the next one coming out?" I never got any. I let him know that we close at 9 and we can't really make anything past then because the oven gets shut off. Luckily the manager overheard this and stepped in to back me up, and I quickly scamper off to the back to continue the dishes. He seemed pissed, but it wasn't unheard of, as being a cheap pizza buffet, you don't exactly bring in the most affluent of folks. About 5 minutes later, as I'm finishing up the plates, the same manager comes barreling through the back door, out of breath. He grabs 2 of the long wooden pizza pushers and says, "Come with me." I have no idea what's going on, but I grab the pusher and follow him out the door. I learned later on that he started flipping out, throwing the register and a fish bowl. He grabbed a broom and swung that around, hitting the girl behind the counter. This bit we caught on camera as I exit from the back. This guy is screaming and ranting unintelligibly. He was just asking for a fight. He walked up to the manager, got all up in his face and kinda pushed him back. He came at me next, and I was really close to taking a swing at his knees or something, but the other manager had quickly gotten back up, and he resumed harassing him. After about 2 minutes of tiptoeing around a brawl, and his wife presumably screaming for him to get back in the car, he eventually gets in, and they drive off. I won't forget the glossed over look in his eyes as he came after me. Freaks me out to this day. I used to cook for a breakfast buffet back in 2012 to 2013 as one of my first jobs. The restaurant in question I won't say the name of, but rhymed with meat and bark. Most of the customers that we got at the restaurant in general would be old people. However, a lot of the old people were very entitled and would come straight from church to the restaurant for their breakfast buffet. I'll just make a list. One old lady kept implying that I wasn't old enough to work there. I said many times my real age, 17 at the time, and she kept saying, "I bet they are just making you say that. You know it's illegal, that they are making you do this." And I'm just at a loss and don't know what else to tell this lady who is 100% confident that I must be underage or working for free or something. I don't know what her goal was. A guy taking all of the bacon and putting it on his plate and then telling me to look at the empty spot where the bacon was before he took it, and I said, "Okay, looking? What am I looking for?" And he said, "Tell me what's wrong with that." And I say, I don't know, is it not clean or something?" And he says, "There's no bacon left. Aren't you going to refill it?" And I'm like, "Well, that's weird, it was just filled a couple minutes ago. Someone must have took it all." knowing it was him, and he couldn't put 2 and 2 together and just said, "I don't know, but there's no bacon there, so what are we going to do about it?" Some lady looking at bacon in disgust and saying, "Wow, it's 2013. Who even eats meat anymore? Really?" Some lady shows up to the buffet 15 minutes after it closes while we are taking it down and says, "Whoa, what are you doing? I haven't even gotten my food yet." And we tell her politely that the buffet had closed 15 minutes ago, and the servers even give last call on the buffet 15 minutes before it closes. Her response, "That's okay, I'll just go complain to your manager." I just said, "Okay, sounds good." In my head I'm like, what? You're going to tell my manager that the buffet closed 15 minutes ago? He knows. LMAO. Nothing huge, but the same lady would come to the restaurant at least twice a week and complain about how shitty her service is each time and how the food is terrible. Finally, one of the hostesses said, "If the service is so bad and the food is so bad, then why do you come here multiple times a week?" Which shut her up. LMAO. When I was 16, I was a busboy at one. This morbidly obese family, 4 people, 2 parents, 2 teenagers, all gigantic, came in after the noon hour when it was slow and were taking full advantage of the all-you-can-eat buffet. On my way to bussing tables, I walk by the bathrooms and see the teenage son walk out of the men's room with a huge shit-eating grin on his round, prepubescent face. I immediately thought this can't be good and went to go check on the restroom, as one of our responsibilities was to make sure that the restrooms were generally clean. This guy had explosive diarrhea and had not even managed to hit the toilet. There was shit all over the toilet tank, the walls and the floor. No lie, it looked like a hand grenade of shit went off in the stall. Bar none, the most disgusting thing I have ever seen in a bathroom. I thought about cleaning it up, but instead I went to tell my manager. He was a pretty hard driving guy, but he took one look at it, locked the stall and told me, "Yeah, you don't get paid enough to clean this up. We'll get the janitor to take care of this tonight." Not a horror story, just funny. I worked at Wendy's when they had salad bars. You could get a single serving bowl. They used to serve eat-in chili in styrofoam bowls, and the large doubled as a chili bowl, or all-you-can-eat platters. The taco salad bottom plate. On a slow afternoon, this guy came in and got a single serving bowl. After a few minutes, our manager motioned to me and the sandwich guy to discreetly take a look at the salad he was making. The guy had filled the bowl with salad, then made a ring of overlapping cucumber slices to extend the lip of the bowl upwards. He filled that with salad, then added another ring. It took several minutes to build this thing, but by the time he'd finished, he had a tower of salad well over a foot tall. WTH, multiple rings of cucumber slices containing it. That salad was an engineering marvel. He carefully carried it back to his table, sat down, then looked up guiltily as our manager walked out to him. The manager handed him a free item coupon and said, "That is the most impressive salad I have ever seen. Your next one is on me." I served at Golden Corral for 6 months, and it was a god-awful place. You'd think it would be easy, because you don't take orders, right? Wrong. Cleaning up the messes, bussing tables, getting drinks and clean plates, singing for birthdays plus side work definitely kept you busy. Most of the customers weren't the greatest. They made an appalling mess, let their kids run wild, didn't tip. We were paid $2.13/HR and needed tips, no matter how much you bent over backward for them. I saw so many unaccompanied kids reaching into the buffet serving dishes. I saw one kid dip his marshmallow into the chocolate fountain, lick the chocolate off, and put the same marshmallow back in over and over. The customers weren't normally very easy to deal with. Rudeness was the norm there. For example, people got into a physical fight over a table on Easter Sunday. The managers were dicks. They abused everyone, both seemed to hate women, and took advantage of the fact that a lot of the staff was foreign. When we got a negative mystery shop report, we all were gathered into a meeting to be screamed at. When the next shop report was excellent, nothing at all was said. The report was just posted to the bulletin board. My one boss told me to be sure to report all my tips to the eyes. Since he was sure I'd be a waitress all my life, he wanted to make sure I'd get something from Social Security when I was old. Spoiler, I'm no longer a waitress. I have a great job with an excellent retirement plan. Not that serving isn't a good job, but it made me so mad that I was 22 at the time and this was his assumption. The managers carried the tea bags in their pockets. If your customer wanted a cup of tea, you had to track a boss down, and they would snarlingly, begrudgingly hand one over. Servers were also expected to catch and confront people stealing from the buffet, putting leftovers in their bag for example. We weren't allowed to eat. Most cheaper restaurants will give you a meal per shift, but not GC. It was hard, when you saw how much was wasted, to not think you deserved a piece of bread, or broken cookie maybe. To eat you had to clock out, get in line, pay half price, get your plate, and then sit down. After 5 minutes a manager would almost always come over and say we are busy, break's over, so you had to get back to work and throw your food away. I'm hypoglycemic, so my solution was to eat right before work and carry a granola bar in my pocket. I could eat the bar and get away with it in the women's bathroom because the managers were both men. One time, I was so stressed out and trying to scarf down my bar while in the next stall, a very large woman took a very large and smelly dump. I realized that it was one of the worst moments in my life. I quit shortly thereafter, got a much better job, and called up GC's corporate office to tell them everything. My first job in high school was CICI's Pizza. We were constantly dealing with gross things. People sticking gum to tables, walking in wearing swimsuits, dripping wet, with no shoes on. This one we finally told the people they had to stop doing it, and even just some of the practices were disgusting. There's a reason I will never eat grape tomatoes at a restaurant ever again. But the worst was this family that would come in at least once a week. They were all very obese except for the husband, who was super scrawny and looked perpetually exhausted. The woman was missing a bunch of teeth, wore 1970s style glasses, and they all smelled slightly like urine. She would ride in on her scooter and pay for her dinner with vouchers and then make request after request. They never ate off of the buffet, which means that every pizza they ordered was sent to their table directly. I don't know if they still do this or not, and everyone was wrong. I legitimately have no idea whether the son was developmentally delayed or just socially awkward, but it felt like he and the mom worked as a team. One pizza would come out, they'd eat about 3/4 of it, and then realized something was wrong. No problem, we'll make another. No, they wanted something different, a zesty pepperoni with mushrooms. Oh, these mushrooms are canned. I wanted fresh. Also after eating 3/4, so in goes another order only to be wrong. The whole time the woman starts berating whoever is tasked with delivering the pizza or whoever she can wave over to their table because none of them get up. They even do this to get people to refill their drinks. As this is all going on, the son is getting more and more upset because his pizzas, that he still ate most of, are wrong and starts getting loud, gets up and starts pacing back and forth, etc. It eventually escalates to a point where we offer to remake after 2 to 3 pizzas, and the woman is yelling about how we keep messing it up. Why would she want to come back here to eat? We just can't seem to get it right. Maybe it's that Mexican we have in the back making the pizzas. If he knew English maybe he'd know how to do it right. Blah 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 until the manager rushes out and gives them vouchers for a free meal on us, and they okay, well maybe we'll be back, but I just don't know. And then a week, maybe 2 weeks later, here they come rolling back in. I was so relieved when I left for college and I could kiss that job goodbye. I didn't work there, but this is my horror story. I was 13 or 14 and visiting some family in Modesto, California. One day, my in-law and I are leaving the mall, and he asks if I'm hungry. I say yes, and he says, "You wanna go here?" while motioning to some Golden Corral type place that's built into the mall. I say okay, because I'm a teenaged bottomless pit. We walk around the stations, get our plates full, and sit down to eat. We are eating for maybe 5 minutes when we both hear a loud commotion. Not sure what the sound is. We look up at each other and then around the dining area, both confused as to what we are hearing / where it is coming from. And then we both see it. Across the dining room, a morbidly obese man is sitting at a long table by himself. The alarming sound we were hearing was his loud, guttural retching. That's when I see the most violent spray of vomit I've ever witnessed. There was so much, it must have been a solid 6 or 7 heaves. And he wasn't even slumped over. He was such a big person that as the vomit was spraying out of his mouth, only his head was jerking back and forth. He was trying to cover his mouth with his hand, but it looked like it had the same effect as when you hold your thumb over the end of a water hose. The spray easily covered his table, covered his plates, and then was spilling over the edges onto the floor. Near the end of the heaves, there was less pressure, so it was just oozing out of his mouth and onto his chin, chest, belly, and thighs. He doesn't move. He sits in it. Some employees who didn't look like they were much older than me run over and take inventory of the damage. They are asking him if he is okay. They are apologizing. They are taking his vomit covered plates away. They are wiping the table off with wet rags. One of them brings a bucket and mop over. He uses some of the rags to clean himself up. The people who were sitting near him have already gotten up and left in obvious disgust. My uncle and I cannot look away. The employees leave. He doesn't move. He sits there. I go back to eating my food because I'm a hungry teenager. A few minutes later, while I'm eating, my uncle gets my attention and motions for me to look back at the man's table. We both watch him stand up, grab his walker, walk back over to a station, and start to serve himself more food. He went back to his table, sat down, and continued to eat. It was incredible. I grabbed myself a soft serve cone on the way out. I once worked in bar where they catered events in a number of ways, one of which was an all-you-can-eat buffet. During one of my shifts, and christening reception was in full swing. We had knowledge already that some of the guests would be late, so we were told to progress the food to the buffet table slowly. We put out several sausage roll platters, sandwich trays and cake plates. Finger food for those already there. The event started at 12 o'clock. At 1400 hours, in walk who I'm going to call Mr. Creosote and Creosote Jr. The wife/mother was already there, and, from outward appearances, Mr. and Jr. didn't look like the sort that had barrels for stomachs. By then, the event room was packed, so we began putting out more of the hot food and platters. I was working drinks from the bar, and so had a good view of both the event room and the main bar room. While cleaning glasses, I see Creosote's Mr. and Jr. piling their plates. Pizza slices, cream buns, cheese and onion sandwiches, spines from the pineapple hedgehog, all of it in a heap on a cardboard plate. Then they disappeared. This happened several times. For at least half the times I saw them, they both had a plate each. Then I look up, and they are sharing a plate. Finally, only Creosote Jr. is walking back from the tables. Now, Creosote Jr. wasn't the only kid there, but he was the oldest. For a while, 2 5-year-old boys were running through the bar and into the beer garden and back. As they're running through, the boy in front is running, shaking his arms above his head in a frenzy as he runs. Meanwhile, Creosote Jr. is now slowly creeping his way up the table, a far cry from his happy strides from earlier. He's just finished piling his next plate of food when it happens. In run the 5-year-olds, who make a beeline for the tables. Creosote Jr. is slightly away from the table. Boy 1, arms swinging, flies around Creosote Jr. and, as he does so, slams a fist the size of a cricket ball into Creosote Jr.'s crotch. It all happened slowly. The boys ran out of the room unaware. The leaning tower of pizza and cheese of Creosote's plate topples over as his hands move to his crotch. He drops to his knees. Mrs. Creosote comes over to him, checking if he's okay as he screams in agony. Creosote Jr. gets this look on his face. He quickly gets up, hand over his mouth and runs for the main bar room. Stumbling, he hits the bar and a loud burp erupts from him, yet his hand still holds his mouth tight. He can't see the sign for the bathroom. He rushes back to the bar and sensing it's nearly geyser time, Point to the far corner of the room. Too late. A torrent of pineapple chunks, melted cheese, various colored liquids and bread pieces come flying out of his mouth, splashing across the bar. The patrons at the bar scattered. I jumped back. It went everywhere. He drops to the floor, a mixture tears and vomit stains. His mother rushes out. I rush out with a towel and I help him get up before they both go to the bathroom. We had to open the other end of the bar while we cleaned up the vomit. I don't work there anymore, but the smell is still there almost a year later. Edit, spelling and punctuation. Thank you so much for watching the whole video. Please leave a like and subscribe.